So this is BCSS again. She's connected, but her audio is not connected. She needs to click connect audio at the bottom of her screen. I sent her a message. She's not replied to it.
Thank you for your efforts. Juliet? I see her, okay.
Yeah, hi, hello.
Juliet?
Hi, everyone, thanks, sorry.
Hi, finally.
We had a bit of an issue with the connection. Okay. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. This is Juliette Touma. I'm the Director of Communication at UNRWA. I was invited by Stefan and colleagues to give you the latest on the situation of Palestine refugees and civilians in the Gaza Strip. This will not be very long. I will give you the latest updates. And if I could ask those who are online to maybe close their mics, because I think there is some interruption in the background. Or maybe it's you, Shireen, I don't know. Okay, so according to the latest information, 1 million Palestinians have been displaced since the 7th of October. UNRWA sadly had lost 14 staff members who work with the agency in the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October. Many of our own staff themselves, they have been displaced. Many have taken refuge with friends and relatives, but many, many more are taking refuge in UNRWA facilities, including in facilities that were not meant to become shelters. The siege on the Gaza Strip continues. UNRWA has not been able to bring in any supplies since the 7th of October, and our own supplies are running out, and they're running out fast. Our colleagues who continue to be in Gaza, who continue to stay and deliver for people in Gaza, including those impacted by this war, are reporting that they are down themselves to 1 liter of water a day in our offices in the south, where we have relocated our center of operation. A very tragic situation on the ground. Bombardment and airstrikes continued in Gaza. Our own staff are impacted as well, terrified, very, very worried for what the next hour will bring, let alone what the next day will bring. they and us, we keep always in touch, and they tell us that they cannot even reassure their children to tell them that it's going to be okay, because maybe it's not going to be okay. We feel that the levels of desperation and frustration and exhaustion among our staff specifically increases by the hour. The longer this goes on, the longer the fatigue, the exhaustion, the frustration goes with that. What we are calling for at UNRWA is for the siege to be lifted, the siege on the Gaza Strip to be lifted, so that organizations like UNRWA, but also other sister UN agencies and other humanitarian agencies are able to bring in much needed supplies into the Gaza Strip to provide assistance to those in need. I'm going to stop here and take any questions, Shireen.
Thank you, Juliet. I'll start with Pam. Please go ahead.
And if colleagues can please introduce themselves, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you, Juliet. On behalf of the UN Correspondents Association, thank you very much for the briefing. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News. A few pieces of clarification, if you would. One were the tweet back and forth. You clarified on social media, that on social media there were reports of supplies being taken from trucks, but it was UNRWA's tweet that was later deleted that said, reports yesterday from a group of people with trucks purporting to be from the Ministry of Health of the de facto authorities.
Your mic.
In Gaza, remove fuel from the compound. That was an UNRWA tweet that was later deleted, and you have clarified. What happened? Was that a mistaken information? Were you hacked? I mean, how did that get out? And then a clarification on the fuel trucks that were able to leave through Rafah to get fuel, 6 fuel trucks that were seen. Are there things getting in and out of are some trucks getting in and out of Rafah? And finally, just what's the status of water? Because the IDF said they turned on their faucet. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Let me start with a question on water, and to confirm that there continues to be no water for the vast majority of the population in Gaza. We're talking about 2 million people in the Gaza Strip who do not have water, and water is running out, and water is life, and life is running out of Gaza. So we have not had any information or any updates since the statement you are referring to with regards to the return of water to Gaza. And for the water to be flowing like it was before the 7th of October across the Gaza Strip, a number of things need to happen. So we need to get in fuel, which is absolutely critical for the water to be pumped again. Fuel is critical for a number of reasons. It's critical for the desalination plant that another UN agency, UNICEF, has been supporting for a few years. And also fuel is important for the pumping stations in general. So that is one source of water in Gaza. The second source of water in Gaza used to come from the Israeli private sector through vendors who used to send it through the crossings that Gaza has with Israel, and that obviously has stopped. So this is the story of water. However, like I said, UNRWA has not been able to confirm the reports that you are referring to. And when the situation changes, hopefully soon, and people will have regular access to water, we will, of course, issue another update for you all. We are following this story very, very closely because we are very concerned about the spread of waterborne diseases if water continues not to be available in Gaza, because we do know that people are resorting to dirty water sources. including including water from wells. So that is something that we are following very closely, and we will continue to update everyone. Now, with regards to the tweet, we issued the clarification, and the clarification is about the images that have been circulating on social media, and to clarify that there was no looting whatsoever in UNRWA warehouses, and that those images that were circulating that do not belong to UNRWA, by the way, they were of a movement of basic medical supplies from one of our warehouses in Gaza City, and they were sent or delivered to health partners in Gaza. When it comes to your question about fuel, I would like to clarify again that no fuel tankers from UNRWA have crossed the borders today into Gaza. You may be referring to a media report, so let me clarify for you and for everybody in the room and online that UNRWA was moving some of its existing but very limited stock of fuel that we already had inside Gaza.
Thank you, Juliet. I'll give the floor to Ibtisam and then to Joe.
Thank you.
Ibtisam first and then you. Sorry.
Thank you. My name is Ibtisam Azim, Al-Arabi Al-Jadid newspaper. Good to see you. So you talked about the fact that you have 1 million Palestinians who now within Gaza displaced within the last week. Could you elaborate a little bit about their conditions, and are you able at all to help, given the huge number and the fact that Gaza, before even these strikes, was facing a dire humanitarian situation? And the other thing about the Rafah crossing, Israel bombed last week the Rafah crossing twice at least. So my question here of a technical nature, can you still, if the crossing will be open, would you still be able to get some aid despite the bombing of the Rafah? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ibtisam, and good to see you. On the situation of the IDPs, yes, so it's an estimate that 1 million people have been forced to flee their homes and have become displaced. Nearly half of them are sheltering in UNRWA schools, and this is the caseload that UNRWA has most information about. So let me share what we know. They have been taking shelter in nearly 100 UNRWA facilities. Many of them are schools. Some of them are what we call designated shelters, so they are equipped as shelters. However, because of the very high number of internally displaced, UNRWA was forced really to open other facilities that were not designated shelters, and people have taken refuge there. In some cases, for example, some IDPs, internally displaced persons, have taken refuge in a logistics center, which is a huge warehouse that UNRWA ran in southern Gaza, but it's not at all equipped to shelter human beings. It's a warehouse for our supplies, for the wheat flour and for the matrices and for the hygiene kits and other material that UNRWA distributed to people in need before the war began on the 7th of October. So their situation is quite dire. Also related to our supplies, because our supplies are running out, because we have not been able to bring in any supplies to the Gaza Strip since the 7th of October. So our own UNRWA supplies are running out, and they're running out fast. The shelters are overcrowded. The shelters do not have enough sanitation services. We are getting reports that hundreds of people are sharing one toilet, for example. So related to the previous question, we do have serious concerns about the spread of waterborne diseases in the Gaza Strip, especially among those displaced. Many of those displaced are actually UNRWA colleagues, and they tell us that they're shell-shocked. They're shell-shocked simply to lose their home, to become homeless, and to come and take refuge in what is a UN facility, whether it's a school or a logistics center or a medical facility. But the vast majority of those displaced, they left on a few days ago when the Israeli authorities issued the warning, and the vast majority has moved to the south. There continues to be displaced people in the north as well. And when it comes to the Rafah question, right now what is really key is to lift the siege on Gaza and find ways to deliver supplies into Gaza. UNRWA, until the war began, used to bring in supplies via the crossings that Gaza has with Israel. We used those crossings. We did not use Rafah. There is a team from the UN that is working to bring in supplies from Rafah. Supplies are very much needed, so there should be a lifting to the siege, and the UN should be allowed to bring in much needed supplies.
Thank you, Juliet. Yes, please go ahead.
Joseph Klein, Canada Free Press. You've mentioned several times the imperative of Israel lifting the siege. Israeli officials have said on a number of occasions that as soon as Hamas releases its hostages unharmed, the siege will end. So I'm wondering, in UNRWA's interactions with its counterparts in Hamas and the government administration of Hamas, whether UNRWA has brought up the subject of and suggested that Hamas release the hostages immediately so that the siege can be lifted. Has that come up in any interactions that UNRWA has had with any of the Hamas agencies and government officials that UNRWA has had contact with? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I have to come back to you on that because I will need to understand what interactions are happening on the ground with our teams. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Hi, Juliet. Neda Tawfiq with the BBC. I understand the concern is right now hour by hour, but I just wondered if I could ask you kind of a more longer-term question. I mean, what do you think the future looks like for UNRWA? I mean, we're hearing, that Israel's determined to root out Hamas from the Gaza Strip, and we're expecting a large ground offensive. We're, also hearing statements from members of the right-wing government saying that they want a Nakba worse than the Nakba of '48. For UNRWA, I mean, how worrying is this type of language to you? How concerned are you about your ability as an organization to serve Palestinians in Gaza moving forward?
We've not had a minute to stop and think, Nada. All we've been doing right now and all we've been focusing on is the delivery of humanitarian assistance and efforts to bring in supplies into Gaza, because the situation on the ground is pretty dire, and that's what UNRWA has been focusing on.
Thank you, Juliet. Yes, Dawn.
Thank you, Juliet. Dawn Clancy with Pass Blue. I have 3 questions. The other day, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken mentioned that he was in discussions with Israel about creating safe zones. And I'm just wondering if you had any more details about that. What's your response to that? Is anywhere safe? Is it even possible to create a safe zone in Gaza? My second question is, you mentioned that internally displaced Gazans are gathering. I think you mentioned there's a warehouse. And I was wondering if when that happens, do you share this information with the IDF so that doesn't, imagine lots of people gathered in one place could easily become a target. Do you share that information with the IDF? And then finally, you mentioned that 14 UNRWA staff members were lost. unfortunately, we hear this and we don't get any more details about that. I was just wondering if you could maybe humanize them a little bit. How old are they? That type of information. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, and very nice to meet. Look, on the safe zones, I don't have any information. On the 14 colleagues who were killed, they were, the vast majority of them were teachers. It was a mix of men and women. We had one woman who was a gynecologist. We had one engineer. We had support staff. This is what we have been able to confirm thus far. However, it is likely that the numbers of fallen UN colleagues is higher. Some were killed in their own homes with their families. Yeah, that's what we have on the 14 colleagues. And the last question on the so all UNRWA facilities, the coordinates of the UNRWA facilities are shared with the Israeli authorities.
Thank you, Juliet. Let's move to the screen and then we'll come back to the room. Michelle Nichols, you had a question?
Hi, Juliet. Michelle Nichols from Reuters. Thank you so much for doing the briefing. I just wanted to clarify some of the figures. I know it's all very fluid. The last figure we were given with regard to displaced people was that on Saturday afternoon, there was an estimated 600,000 displaced to the southern half of Gaza, of which about half of those were in UNRWA shelters. So now that you're saying there's an estimated million displaced, those extra 400,000, where have they all moved south as well? How many of them are sort of believed to still be in the north? And then just on UNRWA staff, we were told there's about 13,000 UNRWA staff. How many of those staff and their family want to leave? Thanks.
Okay, thanks so much, Michelle. So on the internally displaced, look, the numbers are indeed very, very fluid. They continue to be updated and they change because the situation is very fluid. And it is very hard to come up with a breakdown and to understand where most of the movement, where, exactly what happened with the numbers. We do know that 400,000 plus are sheltering in UNRWA centers, so that we know for sure. But you're absolutely right. The numbers are very fluid. There is, however, a caseload of people, a number of people who continue to be in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, despite the order from the Israeli authorities. So that's what we have on the internally displaced. With regards to the 13,000 staff members, yes, you're right. UNRWA is the largest UN agency working in the Gaza Strip, both in terms of the size of our operations, but also in terms of the number of staff, 13,000. These staff members, until the war began, they were teachers, they were doctors, nurses, pharmacists, warehouse workers, logisticians, technicians, drivers. I mean, we have a very, very big operation in the Gaza Strip. How many do they want to leave? I think people are... What we hear from our staff is more about that they're terrified and they're tired and they want for all of this to come to an end. And the messages that we're getting is, get us out of this hellhole. This has become hell. I mean, the SOSs worsen by the day, if you wish. I check in with the team that works directly with me in the Gaza Strip at least once a day, and I feel the mood is going down. I feel the level of desperation is going up, uncertainty really from an hour to another, fear. That's what our staff have been sharing with us.
Thank you, Juliet. Dulcie, and then in the back, okay.
Thanks very much. This is Dulcie from Pass Blue. I just wanted to ask you, the 13,000 staffers, are they all national staff? Because that's what we've been told. How does UNRWA work with OCHA in the region? Is OCHA sort of the umbrella organization working on the humanitarian aid situation? So just logistically, how do you work together? Is UNRWA at all getting in contact with Hamas? Is there any sort of communication between UNRWA and the militia? Thanks.
Thanks so much. On the breakdown of our staff, so it is a mix of local and international staff. So 13,000 staff working on the ground. The vast majority of whom are local Palestinian staff from the Gaza Strip, and the vast majority of them are also Palestine refugees. On the coordination with OCHA, we work with OCHA, of course, very, very closely. We are an operational UN agency, so our work is quite different to OCHA's. Our work focuses, or at least focused before the war began, on schools. So, for example, we have 180 schools in Gaza that used to provide 300,000 boys and girls in the Gaza Strip with education. We've had, since the war, we were sadly forced to close them down. We have primary healthcare centers. We have a vocational training center. We used to give cash assistance to families in need. And we used to give 1.2 million people food assistance. So that also tells you something about the situation in the Gaza Strip before the war began and before the siege was imposed. The number of people who relied on organizations like UNRWA and other UN agencies and other humanitarian agencies for food assistance. Gaza has some of the highest levels of poverty in the world, and definitely in the region, with nearly 80%. So 4 out of 5 people in Gaza are poor, and then it has the highest unemployment rates among young people in the world. With regards to our contact with Hamas, I will have to go to our staff on the ground related to a similar question I was asked and come back to you via Shireen and colleagues in Stefan's office.
Sure. Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you. I don't like to deal with Stefan anymore. I'm Richard Roth of CNN. Here's a question. It goes back to what you referred to earlier, the fuel trucks. The CNN staffer saw 5 UN fuel trucks going into Gaza today. Where did they get the fuel? What is the fuel for? Can you give us any color on the 5 fuel trucks? Thank you.
Yes, so like I said, and thank you, sir, for the question. Like I said, this is fuel that already existed in Gaza, and UNRWA transferred it from very close to the borders towards Gaza City, and it's going to go to health providers in Gaza City.
Thank you, Juliet. Are there any more questions in the room or online? I can't see from here. Okay, Ibtisam, go ahead, and then Pam.
Hi, Ibtisam again. Just about the situation of hospitals and also pregnant women in Gaza. Because could you say more on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so look, on hospitals, what I do know, and perhaps it's better, Ibtisam, if you get the latest from the World Health Organization, because they follow much more closely than UNRWA on the situation of hospitals. But what we do know is that their basic supplies are also running out fast, and their fuel is running out fast. And so it is, I think, a common story across the board when it comes to civilian infrastructure and civilian facilities that provide for those in need. It is a similar story to that of UNRWA's. We're all running out of supplies very, very fast because of the siege. And this is exactly why the siege has got to be lifted. And organizations like the one I work with, UNRWA, needs to be able to deliver supplies into the Gaza Strip as soon as possible. On the pregnant women, again, it is there are other UN agencies who follow those situations, if you wish, more closely. However, what we've been following and what we've been extremely alarmed at, if I could, is in the situation of pregnant women who were in the northern parts of the Gaza Strip, and when the Israeli authorities issued that warning that how they would move. So we were extremely worried about their situation, them, people with disabilities, older people, people who is not for them is not as easy as for others to move and to get displaced yet again.
Okay, Pam, and then Joanne, that's the last question. We need to let Juliet go.
Juliet, forgive the repetition, but just on the fuel tanks that I asked and then Richard asked, did they originate in Gaza, then went out to refuel and came back through the Rafah crossing? So some things, no. How did they?
They were already in Gaza. They were already in Gaza. We were able to pick them up today.
So it didn't go through Rafah at all?
No. They were already inside Gaza. So if we can please,
okay.
if you can help us clarify so that we're accurate, they were already inside Gaza. So I'm going right after this press conference. I'm gonna pick up the phone, call CNN, and ask them to correct.
Okay, and there's no nothing is getting through Rafah. Nothing has yet. I mean, a few diplomats have apparently gotten out, but there's no food coming in the last 24 hours, or any supply.
So, okay, so let me try again, and thank you for asking those questions. No supplies have come into Gaza since the 7th of October. Nothing. No fuel, no food, no water, no other types of assistance. No supplies have gotten into Gaza since the 7th of October. That I can confirm, not for UNRWA and not for other UN agencies.
Joe, go ahead.
Yeah. Again, Joseph Klein, Canada Free Press. Could you tell us, or perhaps you can find out from the UNRWA folks who are on the ground and then get back to us, prior to October 7th, when was the last time that UNRWA facilities, particularly schools, were thoroughly inspected to make sure there were no rockets or other weaponry hidden either in or beneath those schools, as has happened in the past? Could that be something, if you can't answer that now, could you see if you can find that out and so that we can be informed on that? Thank you.
When was the last time? Can you say the question again, just so I take note? I don't have the answer to this now.
Okay.
When was the last time?
As you know, in the past.
When was the last time UNRWA facilities were inspected?
I got the background, sir, but just give me the question, please.
The question is that prior to October 7th, when was the last time that UNRWA facilities, particularly schools, were thoroughly inspected to make sure that there were no rockets or other weaponry hidden in or beneath those facilities?
Okay, thank you. I'll come back to you via Shireen. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Juliet, for your patience, and thanks everybody for your patience. And Juliet, have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and we'll speak to you shortly again. Bye-bye.